Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Tom Morgan Drum Studio. And today we're back in a sequential approach to Fundamental Snare Drum, and we've reached page 57. And you notice I have a snare drum out here today because we're going to play a solo that pops up on page 57 called Gigue. And we've been talking about compound meter, so this little piece is in compound meter. It's in 3/8 time or 6/8 time. So a jig, by the way, is a dance. It's actually like an 18th century dance form that a lot of composers, it was really a folk form first, and then composers wrote pieces called jigs that copied the folk dance of the jig. So I've written one that's a snare drum solo that kind of falls into that. So it's going to have that lilt of 6/8, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that kind of a feel. All right. It does have a first and second ending there. And if you look at that repeated section about the middle of the page, you'll notice I have this written. And so on. So that's just a buzzed eighth note, wherever the Z falls. And you want to try to make the buzz as long as you can make it so it connects to the next note. All right, and just use a right, left, alternating sticking there. And then the other little thing in this is there's a DC al coda at the second to the last line, the end of that line. That means to go back to the beginning. And then if you follow the first line across, you'll see 2 coda, and then you drop down to the bottom line and finish the piece there. Okay? So this is Gigue. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so hopefully you noticed that the rhythms in this solo are still using, for the most part, those same 6 rhythmic patterns that we started with back a few pages. And so hopefully you're starting to get really used to those patterns, and they're making sense to you. All right, so that's the jig. Now we're going to turn the page, and we're going to go over to page 58. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some dynamic concepts here. And we're introducing the concept of crescendo and decrescendo. Crescendo just means gradually get louder. The decrescendo means to gradually get softer. And it can be indicated in a couple of different ways. You see in the first line, you see the typical, lines getting further and further apart for a crescendo, and then moving back closer together for a decrescendo. But it can also be written just with the word or the abbreviation creche or decreche. In line 2, we see that. It means exactly the same thing. Line 3, we have shorter crescendos and decrescendos. Line 4, we have longer ones that last 4 measures. And then line 5 is the tricky one. That's where you have not repetitive rhythms, but you have different rhythms in every measure, but you still have 2 measures of crescendo and 2 measures of decrescendo. And we're just going between piano, soft, and forte, loud. So remember that your dynamics are controlled by the height of your sticks. So when you start out at piano, you're going to have your sticks down pretty far. And then when you get up louder, they're going to come up higher. And you also have to remember that dynamics are relative to each other. So if I start my piano too loud, then I don't have any place to go with my forte. If I start getting too soft too soon after my forte, then pretty soon I'll just, won't have any place to go to get back to piano. And we don't want this crescendo to, you start out and then you realize in the second measure of number 1 that you're not loud enough, so then you increase the rate of your volume increase, and you kind of have a flare up there at the end of volume, or you realize that as you're going down that you're not soft enough, and then there's this, greater amount of decrescendo at the end. You want to try to make it gradual, the same rate of increase going up and going down. That's not easy. So we'll do our best here to give you an idea of what we're talking about, but this is something that is really worth practicing and getting to where you can control the dynamic of the crescendo and decrescendo so it happens in the time span indicated. All right, here we go. Number 1, I'll just do it twice. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just trying to think of my sticks moving up gradually and moving back down gradually. Okay, here's number 2. Now the crescendos are indicated differently, but they mean the same thing. And I've changed the rhythm. 2, ready, and go. Okay. Now, number 3, we have 1 measure crescendos and decrescendos. 2, ready, and go. So maybe that last 2 measures I wasn't quite as gradual as I wanted to be, but you get the idea. Now number 4 is 2 lines long, and we have a whole measure of crescendo and then a whole measure of decrescendo. So I'm not going to repeat number 4, I'll just play it once. Here we go. Ready? Go. So about halfway through, you want to be, you know, maybe at mezzo forte, or, you know, somewhere in between mezzo piano and mezzo forte. Well, here's the last one. This one is the most difficult one. Again, I'm only going to play it one time. But we have 2 measure-long crescendos and decrescendos. 1, 2, and ready, and go. And. Okay, so when you have a long space in there between notes, you've got to still be mentally kind of thinking of your crescendo or decrescendo moving along and come back in at the right dynamic level. Okay, so these are things that might not be the most fun thing to practice, but the more time you put in on it, the better off you'll be. Try recording yourself and be really, really ruthless with yourself in terms of, you know, being a stickler about how, you know, how gradual was that crescendo or decrescendo. Did I arrive too soon at the high point or the low point? You know, those kinds of things. All right, so that's the end of that. Be sure you subscribe if you haven't, and like the video, and push the little bell there to get more, get an indication of when the next one's going to come. And we will continue on through the book, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.